Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Get ready to be inspired, hear success stories, and learn tips and principles for bringing out the best in everyone.
Hello, everyone. This is Debra, and this is Human Potential at Work. I'm really excited about my guest. Um, his name is JD or Johannes, and I'm going to let him introduce himself to you. But we actually met over social media, and we have become. He's just a wonderful man. He's a wonderful man. He is. A security expert, so he focuses on cybersecurity, but he's very interested in accessibility and cybersecurity and how all of us can be included. Very, very interested in community. And when I first met him, he had invited me to be in one of his in a Twitter community. And I'm not as active as I used to be because life is too intense, but he's just a really amazing man with a very important voice. He comes from the Netherlands. So he is Dutch, but he's actually living in Bonn, Germany. So JD, welcome to the program. Do you mind telling the audience a little bit more about who you are, where you come from, Germany, and because I appreciate so much about you, including you champion me whenever a hacker stole my Twitter account and I was struggling to get it back, and you took the lead to make sure that Twitter heard me, and I really am grateful for that. You've done that for many others. You're a good soul.
Well, thank you very much for this very kind introduction, Deborah. Um, the feeling is completely mutual because you coach me on a personal level when I'm trying to learn what accessibility and inclusion means, and especially what it means when it's not there.
Right.
And it's just become a very important bridge in my work because I work in the field of cybersecurity, but I focus on the human factor. Because in my view, and I'm very happy that a growing amount of clients start to see that the same, no matter how good the technology is, it's still human beings, people like you and me and all the others who have to work with that, who depend on it. Our society is getting more and more connected, which is great. We have access to things we did not have access to 10 years ago. But what we are lacking is a very transparent policy, industry wide, in which we all say, yes, we built that technology, and yes, it's our responsibility to make sure that you and you and you, oh, and you as well, and you there back in the room, you too, you can use it, and we make sure that you can use it safe. That is still lacking. We
Great.
focus on building new things, which is good. We need to slow down every now and then, and we need to focus on, is that a secure technology? What I've learned in all those years that I'm working in this field is that we put as technology providers too much responsibility for the safe usage in the hands of the user. So
Right.
I love this example of what happened this year. Due to the coronavirus, which is devastating and horrible, Zoom finally got the boom that they deserve because they made a tool which is, I mean, they're the champions when it comes to usability.
Right. Right.
They just forgot two small things: provide a secure experience for everybody and
Hmm.
provide information how you can have that secure experience. Now, there were, of course, experts said, well, you have to go through the settings and you have to do this and you have to do that. And then, well, a big part of it is secure. But that's not the way it's supposed to work. If you make a product like Zoom, which is great, you also owe that responsibility to make sure that that great product with fantastic usability is accessible. Well, they did pretty well compared to others. When it
Right.
comes to accessibility, they did pretty well. When it comes to security, yeah, in the bottom of the league. So they
Right.
missed one there.
And also, they could, even though I like Zoom and we use Zoom, I would like to see them do more. I'd like the captions to be automatically added, like it is on several others. Microsoft has added now, and so is Google Chat.
Mhm.
I love Zoom, but I wish Zoom would, because what we do, we obviously we're committed to accessibility. So we we do the video and then we send it to a provider to caption it and do it back. So it's an extra expense for my
Hmm.
small business, but I'm not going to put out videos that aren't accessible. So I think it's such a good point that you're bringing up, because it is their responsibility for us to be able to, if you want to sell your product, it should be accessible to all of us. And we're
Exactly.
seeing a lot of the older people, and I'm one of the older people, but that are
Me
scared
too.
of technology. Yeah, but we're not scared of technology, but we're seeing them blame themselves. The user blames themselves. They're too stupid, they don't
Exactly.
understand it.
Exactly.
And I actually agree with your perspective. I think that the tool providers, the technology developers, and they have a responsibility to make sure that the tools work for all of us and not make it so darn complicated that we can't use it. But I love
Exactly.
also the aspect that you come from, because once again, we really do need it to be secure. And we learned quickly, and Zoom reacted quickly. They put in the passcodes and stuff. But I think that's a good point, and it ties into privacy as well, which is why I really love your work. And I think of you as a strategist, pulling a lot of these really big things together, but you also are a market influencer.
Well, but I use my voice for three very for three topics which for me are very important. Number one is I want to create this awareness for the fact that either the supplier of your product took care of your security or you have to. And
Right.
unfortunately, there's still a way too big share where you have to.
I
So
agree.
I want the consumers and I want the companies and I want the executives with the budgets to become very aware that their purchasing power can make that difference. They can call their vendor and say, I'm happy with your product, but I do not like your security approach.
Right.
Now, what is your roadmap? Oh, you don't have that on your roadmap. Well, I'm no longer on your client list because, and they look for an alternative. I want consumers to become aware that half of the stories, at least half of the stories about security and security risk and risk vendors are not true. And the other half is so complicated
Right.
that there's nothing they can really actively do with it. So I also want the experts in the field, and we have fantastic experts. I'm not a technical expert. I don't want to be a technical expert because everything I learned today is outdated before I stopped reading. I
True.
leave that to the experts. There are millions out there, and I want those experts to learn how to share their knowledge in a much more understandable way, in an actionable way.
Right.
I want
Right.
those experts to say, hey, listen, when you install this tool, that happens.
Right. JD, I had I was just thinking this as we were talking. I had a guest on years ago, because this show has been going on for 4.5 years. It'll be 5 years in the fall. Wow. So, and I had a guest on, and he was at the time. He is still a very, very amazing developer, and he's an individual with disabilities as well. And he was with I'm going to forget his name now, but he was with Pinterest. He was with Microsoft, and he was with Pinterest, and I think Google has him now. But he's such a talented developer, software developer. Created Xbox, and he's just so talented. But he said something similar to what you're saying. He feels that designers are dropping the balls. Designers are designing technology that doesn't work for people. They've taken the human aspect out of it. And so and he believed it, he was the first person that I heard that said that, but he said that society disables people. And I thought that was so brilliant. I believe his name was August. I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking on him, but we'll put a little link out there. But it was a beautiful, amazing episode. But he was the first one that was saying it. So now you're saying it. And I, I do want to make it clear a little bit, how you work with your clients, because I know we're really blessed that you're partnering with us, because we're very concerned about cybersecurity. I tried to work with a couple of groups to make sure we could get speakers talking more about it, because it seems like it's very easy, JD, for somebody to say, "Oh, I'm an expert in cybersecurity," and and it's just buyer beware. I'm an expert in accessibility, but I see somebody like you as a strategist tying a lot of these things together and really trying to figure it out. And so, so I want to talk about that, but I also want to take a moment and talk about where we are. You know, we are in the middle of COVID-19. I'm in the US, you're in Germany, but you're from the Netherlands. And we were talking before we went on air with Doug Foresta, our producer, a little bit about what y'all were seeing looking in. And I just think a lot of Americans might enjoy that perspective, because sometimes I worry about a lot of stuff. Um, I just heard one of my staff members has just been exposed to COVID-19, and that's chilling. And so we're praying and sending him light and hoping he'll be fine. But you know, we're experiencing a lot of losses in the U.S. And there's a lot of disruption and a lot of intensity and confusion in the United States. But I just thought I always like to hear from others, especially when they're saying positive things about the U.S. And one more thing before I say this, before I turn the mic over to you, we also see that whenever we all rushed home, 97% of the world to shelter in place, stay home, stay safe, 40% of the children in the United States were not able to access, you know, really do their school, really. So it was not education for all. It was education for some. It was accessibility for some. We see that in the United States, more people are self-identifying to their employers that they have disability than ever before. But at the same time, cybersecurity is up. We're seeing cyberbullying. We're seeing very interesting things. And I know you are one of those strategists that pulls all these pieces together. So I threw a lot at you, but
That's why I love the
tell us how to solve all
conversations.
problems, please.
That's why I love all the conversations with you, Deborah, because there is never a single view. We take the whole perspective, and that's where the solutions are. And this is one of the things that I see happening in the world, not just in the United States, but I see them happening in the world, that people have started to take a single thing and then take a single dimensional approach to that single thing, and they present it as the solution to everything. And that's not the way it's going to work. It will never work like that. It has never worked like that. We are a very complicated society with all kinds of influences. Even when I'm a Dutch person, so I come from the Netherlands, and the entire world has their view about the Netherlands. Well, in reality, I'm half French. And my mother is a Jewish survivor of the Holocaust. Believe me, that has significantly more influence on my personality than the fact that I was born in the Netherlands. But when I'm with a lot of Dutch people, I feel very at home, because, hey, they speak my language, and they like, most of them like the same food. And then we have this multicultural aspects of life. I love it. But still, I am an individual with my individual opinions and my individual thoughts and feelings, and the things I like and the things I dislike. So the first thing that I've learned in life is that there is not a single answer to a single problem. It's always all kinds of small steps. The second thing that I learned in life is that you will never have a problem you can solve with a single step, because if that was the case, it would not be a problem, right?
Right. Right.
I hate the expression low-hanging fruits. I hate it, because I expect you to take care of that. Why are we even speaking about it? Low-hanging fruits, just do them. That's your job. That's your task. That's your obligation.
And that can't be your technological, you know, design plan, lowest hanging fruit, because it seems to be what it was. That's a good point.
Exactly. And I love this introduction about the design, and we spoke already previously about that. I have a theory, and I know I'm going to step on a lot of friends and colleagues in this field. But my theory is, with the wonderful concepts, which I'm a big fan of, design thinking, agile. We have conditioned ourselves on results, on quick results for the optimal audience. Unfortunately, we have also conditioned ourselves to not pay attention to everybody who is not in that bucket of optimal audience.
Right. The extreme
So
users.
we look in our design thinking sessions and in our agile sessions, we look at where is the business value and where is the audience. And we have this image in our mind of what the audience and the ones who can afford our services and spend the most. And that's the ones we focus on. Well, guess what? The people with lower income will still use your services. And the people who are not the optimal Instagram model will also use your services. And if you not take care of them, you might either lose your business or they will do things which are not secure or not safe. But that is still not the most important objective that we should have. The most important objective that we should have is that they are all human beings with the same rights.
Right. And also, JD, something else that I think is really important to remember. In the first place, I used to be a programmer a long time ago, and I wasn't building technology programs that 15% of the people couldn't use, for example. And another thing, and to be honest, I wasn't doing this what I'm about to say that you should be doing, but another thing to consider was that you learn the most by your extreme, your outlier users. If you really are committed to having a good technology product, you're really committed to it, you're going to learn so much by your outliers.
Exactly.
And often, and I think the old world was, we don't care, we don't have time, let's make as much money as the fastest, I don't care how long it takes, get it out. And I think designers had a lot of pressures put on them, and and I think also the usability people, the UX, there's so many different names, the accessibility, there often were really even an afterthought. They were not really given the time that they needed to do their job. And I don't think it was from that they didn't want to do it. I think it was the pressure of no, profitability. So do you think, JD, that with the new world, because I know we're calling it a new world, company, us all finding our equilibriums, but this can't be okay to make the users feel like crap. If I'm over a certain age, and so I'm obviously the one that's broken. So many older Americans, and I should say not just Americans, older people, they feel that they're broken because they can't figure out how to keep their families secure, themselves secure. Privacy, what? Oh, my information's been stolen again. I get sadly hacked. They try to hack me on on Twitter a lot, and I think it's because I defend Huawei, and it's not popular to defend a company, but I think it's wrong what's happening to them. So, and I know you do as well. Sometimes you got to do what's right, and I want to be on the right side of history, but in this new world, do you think that technology providers are going to let their designers do the job that they could do if we would bother to care enough to make sure technology is designed for human beings?
There are examples where it is happening. You mentioned Twitter, and I use Twitter a lot. I love the platform because it's fast and you can. And one of the things they introduced recently is that you can put an alternate text, a description to a picture. And that's important. And I recently discovered why that is important. Let me explain that. I shared it with you 2 weeks ago. A lovely lady on Twitter made this heartbreaking outcry. Her text was, "My father is blind. His wish is to be able to use the internet without my help. Not a single day."
Yeah. So JD, you can use the internet, but I got to help you use it. Okay. So, yeah.
So I took that as because what I always try to do when possible, I try to make things personal for myself to help me understand it's not that I then claim that I'm an expert. It's just I'm trying to understand. So I took this outcry, and I still get goosebumps when I speak about it. It was so heartbreaking to read that message. I then look at myself and I say, well, I'm 58. My eyesight is getting worse. Every year it gets a bit worse. And in the last 2 years, it gets worse much faster than it was in the past. What if, just what if I would lose my eyesight? Well, my first responses are, of course, oh, I could not see my kids. That's horrible. I could not read. I read so much. Reading is part of my research. Oh. And then it starts to slowly drip in. Well, 90% of the internet will be gone. I was basically there from the beginning, and I will not be able to actively participate. I will have to go through a lot of trouble just to. So I then start looking
and
at.
you become a burden. You think of
Exactly.
yourself as a burden, which
Exactly.
messes with your mind. And
Exactly.
already this COVID-19 is totally causing us horrible stress. So you have all of that. Are you even worthy as a human being at that point? Why in the world are we doing this to
This
people?
constant
It's
label,
horrible.
this constant,
Right.
constant labeling of you are not part of it.
Right.
Horrible.
You don't matter. You don't matter because, and
So
fill in the blank, because you have a disability, because maybe you're gay, because you're from the wrong country, you have your skin's too dark, you're
oh,
whatever.
that's so
Stop this.
painful. That's so painful, and that's painful to me. The whole the Black Lives Matter movement at the moment, and I don't want to insult anyone with this statement. My mama is the sole survivor of her family of the Holocaust. So when the World War II ended, she was a young girl alone
Wow.
in a country where she wasn't born. And she was blessed that there was a family who had taken her in hiding throughout the war with risking their own lives.
Right. Right. And the lives of the rest of the family.
Exactly. So that's the extremest level of complete exclusion and violence against human beings because of their ethnicity. In the case of my mother, it was because she was Jewish.
Right. Right.
Now,
It's
I don't want to say that the violence and the systematic racism against African Americans or Black Americans, or however they want to be called, is at that level.
I
I'm not
think
going
it
to say
is
that.
though, but I will say that it is about society deciding certain people don't matter.
Exactly.
That's what it's about. If you're
And
Jewish,
the most
and
scaring thing is we're not moving away from that very extreme case, what happened in the Holocaust.
right,
We're not doing actively anything against it. We're not reducing it. I don't see improvement. All of my life, I was born in 1961, right? And the first few years, I admit that I didn't consciously record it. I read about it later. But all of my life, and I'm 58, all of my life, there has been systematic violence against Black people in the United States, also in other countries.
well, all over the world, and it's important to remember that with the Holocaust, they came for the Jewish people. They also came for the Gypsies. They also came for the first victims were people with Down syndrome, like my daughter, or people with mental
Exactly.
retardation.
Exactly.
So if you think as a person that you're going to be fine because you're this and this and this, at any time it could shift. We were doing violence on Muslim Americans, and now it's Chinese Americans, even though we don't really understand who's Chinese. So Asian Americans, because in the Black Lives Matter, we've been, so I believe what we're walking right now is an opportunity to value human beings and let people be who they are and really celebrate our differences. But also, as we're having this very important conversation, technology is a great equalizer. But I had this one really large brand say to me, "Oh, Deborah, we want you to be on a webinar." And I said, "Okay, is it going to be captioned?" And they're like, "Not this time." And I said, "Well, then I'm not going to be on. I won't do it." Because I said, "And you don't want me to do it." But the days of you thinking that, oh, it's too much trouble, it's too much money to design technology so that it works for all people, that you're providing, captioning, because 80 to 85% of videos watched with sound turned off, according to Facebook and Verizon research. So what do we do with that, JD? How do we convince the world that this way doesn't work anymore? This doesn't work anymore. We need to value humanity and let technology enhance humanity, our experiences.
That is exactly the point. Technology is there to make our lives better. And with our lives, I mean all of us. And I mean,
Right.
I'm looking forward to 5G, but stop bothering me with how it's going to save humanity. Because go to any so-called third world country and show me how many people can afford that expensive mobile device, that very expensive monthly subscription, plus the infrastructure that is required. So it's once again a fantastic technology focused on who can afford it. And then
Right.
we see
And also the politics, the 5G is going to kill us. It's going to, that's confusing to me, all that too. But
yeah,
yeah.
but there is another part. If I have many friends and colleagues in the United States, I have many friends and colleagues in the United Kingdom, I have many friends and colleagues throughout Europe. In Asian countries, most areas have perfect coverage of 4G. If I'm living in Germany, I'm living close to the former capital of Germany. If I go to the next village, I have to keep my mobile phone outside the window because I don't even have 2G.
Right. That's what it is
Right?
in rural America. And a lot of the parts of America that, the poorer parts of America, yeah. So including where I live, and I live outside the capital of Virginia. So on the East Coast, which borders DC. And still I'm impacted. I pay 3 times more than other people, and I don't have as good of internet.
Exactly. I have a buddy of mine, when I have Skype conversations with him, suddenly the quality deteriorates and he says, "Oh, my neighbor just came home."
Right,
Right?
right.
So we have all the marketing attention to, and again, the perfect customer with the perfect product and the perfect service. And then there is the rest of us.
Right.
What I want, and I see Huawei doing that by saying, "Oh, we're going to do a lot for accessibility." And well, I must be honest, they got balls by bringing you on board to be their advocate for accessibility, because they know that you also talk to them and not just to the audience.
Right, right.
Respect for that. But there are other services and there are other vendors who do the same, right? Who are becoming much more involved in saying, "Hey, I'm not going to sit and wait until there is a mobile service provider willing to invest. No, I am going to make an investment. I am going to provide services in an area where it is currently not available. Neither the local service provider nor the consumers would be willing or able to make that investment. I'm going to do that." That is a good
Right.
development.
I agree. And also, JD, don't you think, and this is one reason why I have, first of all, when Huawei first contacted me, I did a lot of research to see what's going on between the US and Huawei, just as a good American citizen. And what I found was very troubling to me. I felt like they were being bullied, and there was some there was a there was profits. It was more about who's going to get the money as opposed to So I saw very quickly what was happening, but at the same, and I also want to tell you that August de los Reyes was the designer I was talking about earlier. Doug kindly helped my memory by typing it in the chat window. But but it's one thing that I really, really loved about what I saw about Huawei, and others are doing this, but Huawei's doing it well, is I really liked their tech for good, their tech for all, less help with the digital divide by providing digital inclusion. And I care about corporations that are making a difference. Many corporations are doing lots of talking about it and
Yes.
not acting on it. And we've seen that during this crisis. And so, and I'm not saying Huawei's perfect. I have no idea if they're perfect. They're a multi-billion-dollar company, but I do appreciate that they're trying. And there are other brands trying. I know Siemens is trying. I know Atos is trying. I know AT&T is trying. Others are trying. And I appreciate those efforts. But I also am to the point now where I'm less patient with corporations trying. It's time to step it up. Step it up. And I'm not alone. Society feels that way. Go ahead,
My
JD.
my my approach is very simple. I don't look at the marketing slogans. I know a bunch of people. I can make some of them, but I'm not as good as a lot of others. I know how marketing slogans are made, but they don't say anything. I learned a trick from Richard from Rue Global Impact when I had a very inspiring conversation with him. Richard taught me a trick, and I extended that trick. Richard taught me, JD, the first thing you must do randomly, when it's not expected, ask them who is responsible for inclusion and accessibility within the organization. And in most cases, the answer will be, I don't know. And in some cases, they will say HR. And then I will say, yeah, that's the hiring process. I mean, products and services. Who in your organization is responsible for accessibility and inclusion for the products and the services you provide? Give me a name. I want to talk to that person. I want to hear the vision. Silence. And then a few minutes later, randomly, when it's not expected, I pinch back. That's my extension of the trick. I ask them what the budget is for this year. What is your budget? How much from your bottom line is allocated for inclusion, accessibility?
Right.
Now, I did exactly the same when Huawei approached me and said, because they saw a few interviews with me about my view on security and my view on what is happening in the market and security being abused as reason for political agenda.
Right. Right. Well said. Well said.
And they approached me and said, would you like to express, and we're not going to take influence on the content, but would you like to write down what your thoughts on these are? What are your findings? I did research as well. I looked at the security profile and I looked at the company and I looked at what are they actually doing with the money that they make, right? The first thing I saw is, wait, they got Debra Rue to say, okay, I'm willing to be your advocate for accessibility and I'm willing to be your advocate for inclusion. Well, knowing you and how much I respect you, that already takes away a lot of my worries. But I look at it because
thank you, JD.
I do not want to be associated with a company that doesn't take the social responsibility beyond putting it on the website and making it a slogan and
Right. Cute
maybe
little
somewhere
words.
in the annual. I don't want to be associated with that. Because
agree.
at the end of the day, there will be a moment where my kids will say, so Dad, what did you do? And I will tell them about what I did. And my kids will say, yeah, well, but you know about this company you worked for. And you know about that company you worked for. And I want them to say, oh, you work for that company. Wow, you work for that company. Especially my daughter is very aware of what is happening around us. She has a very good awareness for that. When I give her some money for some fast food, and kids love that every now and then, she does two things. One is she goes there with her friends and enjoys the fast food. And the second thing she does, and I'm so incredibly proud of her, she goes outside and cleans up the waste. and post videos of that on her Instagram
Oh,
site and says, "People, we cannot abuse our environment like that." I want to look that kid in her eyes, and I want to say, "Hey, I did what I did. I did my best." So I put that as a filter in place. And I learned that from my mother. My mother always said, as long as you do what I expect you to do, you're okay. So always ask yourself, what would mom want me to do?
spoken like a good son. I like that.
But I now do the same towards my kid. What are my kids going to think about what I do today?
Yeah.
And what are my kids going to think about the plans I have for tomorrow and for next year?
And how are we contributing, especially as somebody, I mean, I'm older than you. I'm a couple of years older than you. I was born in 58. But um, you
Who's
know,
counting?
that's right. That's right. But I love how the younger people are really they're stepping up. We've seen some really cool examples in the US. I won't bring some of them up recently, but we recently did, we usually recently saw the young people really step up and show clearly what their expectations were, for, and the politicians heard them loud and clear. And it just made me feel so hopeful, these beautiful young souls that, but what are we doing, JD, to make sure we're supporting them, moving forward? I remember when people were harassing Greta for all the work she was doing, and you and I are like, what is this? This is ridiculous. And making fun of her because she had autism. And she's a cheeky young girl. And she's like, that's my superpower. You
Yep.
wish you had autism. Because I think what we're learning as society, because somebody has autism doesn't mean they're broken. They use their brains differently. Like somebody like me with ADHD, yes, am I a little too high strung? I got to stay away from the coffee, but I'm using all of that to make the world a better place, which is why I just love working with you, because I know you feel that way too.
Well, there's a wonderful example, and you are a citizen of the United States. So you call my favorite sport soccer.
That's right.
I will never understand why.
I don't
And
understand. Why do we, with our
I call it
metrics and
football.
miles, it's so confusing. Why we do
Yeah,
things different from everybody else? It's
but
so confusing when you go outside the US.
but but does that make us different people? Does that make either one of us less or better than the
You're
other?
just wrong about it. Y'all should change your soccer to the football. No,
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 well,
I mean, no, it's the
I will
opposite.
not. My theory is that you guys call it football because you need protective gear to play rugby. But that's just
That is,
my thought.
oh, that is so true. Isn't it? That is so true. That is so
So
true.
the thing is, there's so many small things which have zero influence, in which we are different as nations, as people, as countries, as communities, and religion and color and ethnicity. There's so much that is different. And those differences are the reason why we have a good life. Because, and I posted this a year ago after my thrilling conversation with Richard. And during this conversation, I came up with, and I told Richard that, and he said, I'm so glad that you understood what we discussed. I said, Richard, this means to me, and I'm now translating that in my mind for leadership. I do not hire 20 violin players, give them the same sheet of music, and expect an orchestra. That's not the way life works.
Oh, that is
I
a
get
good analogy. Good
some
analogy.
violins, and I got this, and I got that, and their own interpretations. And then I get the director of the orchestra. And this year, there's every year at New Year's, at New Year, there is this famous um, concert in Vienna. And I try to catch it every time because it's wonderful how they got wonderful video clips and there's wonderful music. And there are a lot of famous magicians. And there is the director of the orchestra. And this year, this director showed how much joy he has in the work and the work with these people and the music. And he showed it and he made his own interpretation. He was playing the same music as all the others did. It's almost every year the same thing. And he made his own thing out of it. So we should learn that all those little differences are the things that make life interesting and the things that make life wonderful.
And
And
rich,
if we
rich
look
for everybody. Yeah.
at Greta, um,
Hey,
she's
JD, I know that we're coming up on the end of we have about 5 minutes, and I want to make sure that the audience knows how to find you. They know how to follow you. They know how to, and you can always come to us because we're really proud to partner with them, and we're going to do some exciting things together. But um, tell the audience, how to find you on social media, and also, and I want to give you the last words too, but you're also a community manager because you've actually pulled so many people together on Twitter, helping them and supporting what they're doing. And it might seem trivial, but it's not. It's actually a very powerful group that you've created. So how do people find out? Do you have a website? Where are you on social media? And then also, I want to give you the final words too.
well, thank you, Debra. Everyone can find me on Twitter under Johannes Drooghaag, my full name. Please do not try to pronounce it properly unless you are Dutch. Otherwise, it will just hurt your throat. You can find me on Twitter under Johannes Drooghaag. I made it as universal as possible. I have a channel on YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. What I try to do is I respond as much as possible to everybody who contacts me, if it's by email or by Twitter. My purpose with social media is, besides sharing my messages, the things I believe in, the things that are important to me, and my marketing channel, which is part of my business, for me, the most important, most pleasant part is dialogues. And those dialogues are the things where we can learn from each other and we can understand. And without a dialogue, I would have never met a wonderful person like Debra Rue. I would have never had the opportunity to have a conversation with Richard from your company, which is still at least twice a week. I have an interaction with that conversation, learning points. Poop, another bug comes up, which Richard planted a year ago.
He's so smart, as the former Disney Imagineer. He's so smart. Gosh, he's brilliant.
Amazing. And his storytelling and how he shared how Disney takes every experience and says every customer must be able to enjoy that experience. Right. And Richard right. being a leading voice in that and taking that knowledge and sharing that and influencing people. I still am processing parts of that conversation, and it was only 1 hour. It was fantastic. So the dialogue and learning from each other and meeting people and trying to figure out, how can I support that person? How can I support another person? How can another person maybe support me? Antonio Santos, our great friend,
I love Antonio,
wrote one post on Twitter, and it changed my layout. He said people who are sensitive to bright light do not like it when you have a bright background on your presentation. He didn't even write it to me. I just read it. And I thought, Antonio, so I wrote him, is this, how much is it? How important is it? And Antonio wrote me back, because that's the way he is, just like how he replies. Antonio said, JD, people who are not sensitive to bright colors don't mind if the background is dark or bright.
Right.
A lot of them even appreciate the higher contrast with a dark background. But there is some, and I forgot the number, but he said, there is a percentage of people who are sensitive to bright light. I can relate to that because I am extremely sensitive to blue light. If there's blue, bright blue, boy, and I love the color blue. I'm sensitive to the color. So he motivated me to change my presentation layouts, to just flip it. And afterwards I said, hey, that actually looks better. I like it. I do this, this very dark bluish, gray bluish background with white text. The contrast is fantastic. I learned something with a simple post. Every time I make a presentation, I think about that message from Antonio, because he made me aware, and it's one little change. And I am helping. I don't care if it's only one person who is now not irritated by the bright backlight.
Right.
Background. It was enough. I'm happy.
JD, before we go, do you have a website?
I have my website, johannesdrooghaag.com.
All right.
I do storytelling on jdpublishing.com.
Yes.
That's
I'm
my
very
cool thing.
interested in JD Publishing. I think that was really cool that you did that. I have to
I
put
love it.
new
Thank
books
you.
out. So what I'll do is, because he does have a difficult name to spell and everything, so we'll make sure that in the links and stuff, we'll make sure that we're tagging him and we're putting it out on the website so y'all can get to him. But I just am very impressed with you, JD. Thank you for everything you're doing. You're so gracious. You're giving everybody else credit, but you actually have done amazing things and is, a very important strategist and market influencer and community builder. So I know your daughters are proud of you, and we sure appreciate you being on the show today. So
Thank you.
let's
Thank
continue
you
the
very much.
conversation and let's make the world a better place together. So thank you,
Step by
JD, and
step.
stay safe in Germany.
Stay safe in the
Okay.
States, please, Debra.
Yeah. Yeah. Bye, everyone.